just keep going, because I promise you, listen to yourself. If it's not feeling like a good fit, find something else. If that's not feeling like a good fit, find something else. So at the end of the rainbow is a lot of happiness and joy.
Thank you for listening to the Interesting People You Meet podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Newground Financial. Newground Financial is a full-service investment and insurance brokerage firm that specializes in employee benefit plans, corporate insurance, and retirement planning. Newground Financial serves the provinces of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI, Ontario, and Alberta. Find out more at newgroundfinancial.com. Thank you for liking, sharing, and commenting on the Interesting People You Meet podcast across all of your favorite listening platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. By doing so, you are ensuring that more great people just like you have the opportunity to hear from our guests. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Today, my special guest is Paul Bruch-Wiens. Very excited to have you here with us today, Paul.
Thanks, Nick. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this is cool. We have an interesting story on how we met, and we can get into that later on and why the heck you're here. But maybe I'll just start with a quick question. And you know, from what I've learned about you so far, you have a pretty diverse career, from being an opera singer to an investment portfolio manager. Can you share a bit about your journey and how these seemingly different career paths have shaped who you are today?
Sure. So just so we're clear, I am an associate portfolio manager.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
It's okay. We'll make that
screwed
clear,
up the compliance question already, eh?
But yeah, how did I get here? My father is a business person and my mother is a musician. And so I essentially became both of them, as many of us do. I was raised in a small town where brought up by the Mennonite faith, and so I was always in church singing 4-part harmony and loving every minute of it. Except maybe if you ask my parents, they'll say I wasn't loving every minute of it, but my memories of it are that I loved it. And then I moved to the big city when I was 10, and my parents moved back to Morden when I was 19. And I stayed in the city, and I got a business degree with a major in accounting. Decided that wasn't for me. Then went and got a music degree and pursued being an opera singer for quite some period of time. And how I always equate it to people that perhaps don't know classical music is that I pursued being an NHL player. And I made it to third center AHL. That's how I would equate me pursuing being an opera singer. That's as far as I made it. And you have to make a choice at that point, right? Is this what I want to do for the rest of my life or not? And of course, pursuing being an artist compared to a hockey player, a third line AHL player is probably making a lot more than a opera singer that makes it that far. So
that's funny.
I fell back on my business degree and I became a commercial banker for 6 years, mostly on the real estate side. And then I went into currency risk management. And then now I've been with a company called Quadrant Private Wealth for 5 years almost. 5 years and a month.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Your bio says you did play sports, though. Did I read that wrong or no?
No, I did.
Yeah. What was your sport?
Before music, I played club badminton.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
So I traveled around Canada for quite a few years playing badminton. Wow. And fortunately, it got me in really good shape. Unfortunately, I started at the age of 13, and I was playing against most kids that had started at the age of 3. So I didn't have a natural affinity for the game. Yeah. And I don't have what people would call in individual sports the killer instinct.
Right.
I am more a guy that would let people get back into the game rather than finish them off because I felt sorry for them. And so if I was ever actually winning, that was like my mentality. So let's just say that I just didn't have it in me to have that kind of a instinct.
Got it. Need you to talk to the young hockey team that I coach who was very lucky this weekend and did very well. And we were having a hard time telling them, just pass a little bit. You don't need to score any more goals. We've done enough here. And hockey players are, they're bred a little different, I think, a bit more aggressive. Anyways, cool. Many people might find it intriguing that you transitioned from a world of opera to finance. How did your background in the arts influence your approach to your current role as an uh, associate investment portfolio manager?
Associate portfolio manager.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a fantastic question. I had to go through a lot of soul searching. Like commercial banking, it used my accounting background really well. Like I had to look through investment statements, financial statements, understand them, understand what made a company strong, weak, be able to talk to management, be able to dig. But at the end of the day, I couldn't figure out the link between being a performer and being a commercial banker. And so it really just wasn't a good fit for me. What happened was I went through an exercise with a gentleman here in Winnipeg, JP Parenty. He had gone through Strategic Coach, a company based out of Toronto, which many people will know that listen to this podcast. And the exercise was called Unique Ability. And so I ran through that exercise. I did it pretty thoroughly. And at the end of the day, it came out that I'm an impactful communicator with a passion for helping others. And so that was the link that I was missing between being a performer and being in finance. What I loved so much about performing was being on stage, communicating with people that I was working with, communicating with the audience that we were serving. And at the end of the day, they would stand up and clap. And for me, when they stood up and clapped, that meant I had done my job. It didn't mean that, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, I know I'm so good. It was more the opposite. It was like, yes, I nailed it. I
Right.
did my job. They are so happy. I had helped them to enjoy their time with us on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the real link for me in finance. And just a little note about unique ability is it is meant to be the thing that you find easiest, that other people will find hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just so happen to find it very easy and natural to have in-depth conversations where I skip all the small talk,
Yeah.
or to be in front of an audience and be comfortable, be able to communicate in an impactful way in the majority of the settings I find myself in life.
Right. How we connected in the airport, and we'll get to that question in a minute. But yeah, we seen each other, and it was like, this is my kind of guy. We get right to the nitty gritty, and we don't have to fool around with talking about the weather. So that's nice.
Yeah.
It reminded me slightly the unique ability and sort of the performance. I was part of a selling program called Sandler Sales, which I was in for a long time, and not necessarily a pitch for them, but they were pretty good. But one of the quotes that the guy who created it, David Sandler, said was, "Selling is a Broadway show performed by a psychiatrist." And I always thought that was kind of neat. Regardless of how we view ourselves in our profession, we're selling ourselves and trust to clients and whatnot. But we also have to have quite a deep knowledge and understanding of people and how they operate and questions to ask and that type of thing. So that's very interesting. I read that you served as an executive chair facilitating leadership conversations, which I thought was kind of neat. What key insights and experiences from that role have you found applicable in your current work?
Yeah, very interesting. So I have been a board member a lot. I'm 43 years old, and I think I've served on 11 different boards already, including all the executive functions. And so I served as a peer group chair for an executive group. So typically CFOs, COOs, through McKay CEO Forums, which is a company based out of Vancouver. How could you repeat the question? Because now I've just sort of given some background and I forgot the question.
Yeah. So just what key insights and experiences from that role in particular have you kind of carried over to your current role?
Yeah, listening. Giving people space to say what's on their mind, leaving your judgment at the door and leaving your ego at the door. You
Mm-hmm.
have no idea what is going on in someone's life, regardless of where they are situated in an organization, a CEO, a owner, a CFO, executive function.
Right.
They're all humans as well. And they all need space to be heard. And
Mm-hmm.
that is a repeating motive in my practice.
Wow.
Is I work predominantly well with people that need the space to be able to say what's on their mind in an emotional setting.
Hmm. That's neat. And I guess that ties into a little bit, how we met. So we're both students currently of the Family Enterprise Advisor program, which we could talk on probably for hours and hours. And you're ahead of me in the cohort right now. I'm just a few months in, and I think you're almost done. That program thus far has really opened my eyes to the importance of what you just said, and how we facilitate conversation and create space for people to talk. Um, you know, yeah, very, very interesting. And super important in our career and what we do. And I think that's really what separates the excellent advisors from the average, is those who know how to be quiet, and let people talk. Those who talk to you about how successful they are and all the things are probably not so successful and great at what they do, or have some serious blind spots. I think the Joe Harry window is what it's called, how we see ourselves, how others see us. Um, Anyways, kind of interesting. You have a vast life experience, Paul. Can you share one or two pivotal moments that significantly influenced your personal and professional journey so far?
Sure. One moment in particular that has two aspects to it. Getting fired. So I got fired twice. And then the birth of my two children.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that let's cover the children first. Um, Children really help you understand what's actually important to you in
Yeah.
your life, like in my opinion, like nothing else can. It's very easy to find yourself before children watching Netflix for 5 hours at a night, or going and having a drink in the bar and going, oops, it's 2 a.m. Uh, and then you have children and you give up the watching Netflix for 5 hours, you give up the going to the bar till 2 a.m. And before children, you think that that's going to be like a thing that you're like, oh, I wish I could still do that. And you realize it's not. You realize that life is about so much more than going to the bar till 2 a.m. and so much more than watching Netflix for 5 hours. And so that was a very pivotal moment for me. And then regarding getting fired, the kids is sort of the life thing. The getting fired is a work thing,
Yeah.
right? But I think also one of the things that needed to happen to me was someone else helping me along to say, this isn't quite the right fit for you.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't quite the right fit for you. And I was never fired from opera. Like that was a choice that I made. But getting into the workforce and making money, I was fired from two positions there, which ultimately was the best thing that could have happened to me.
Hmm. I'm sure there's others going through that right now who may be listening to this and thinking, it's the end of the world. I don't feel very happy because I was fired. Woe was me. And oftentimes it's how we view things. It's easier to look backwards than it is looking forward. In my speech in my wedding, I stole Steve Jobs' line that said, "It's easier to connect the dots going backwards than it is forwards." I assume, to some degree, getting fired may be the same way. In the
Yeah.
in the moment, it's treacherous and sucks, especially if you have kids or bills and all those types of things. But I
Well,
see
and
that
just
also, I think, as a business owner too. If there's people who aren't a right fit, it's okay to let them go, and let them go gracefully, and understand that it's probably better for them, and there's a way to do that. sometimes I think as employers too, we may hold on to people too long because maybe we don't want to upset the apple cart or whatnot. But it's better for someone's career if they're um, taking advantage or practicing their unique ability. I think back to the Dan Sullivan piece, I'd much rather be told I suck at something or I'm not very good, but man, you're really good at this, and that's where you should focus. That's some pretty good advice that you could get perhaps from a boss, a friend, a colleague,
Absolutely.
a
And
fellow FIA associate.
you and I talked about this,
Yeah.
figuring out a way to build your own system
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that whatever your unique ability is the thing that you are consistently working on. And
That's
I'll
right.
be fully transparent with that. Like, the systems are not my forte. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
interested in them, but I know that it's a weakness.
Yeah.
And so if I am to implement systems, it is with someone else helping me implement them. It
Yeah.
is not with me doing them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It is kind of fascinating how we connected one day on at breakfast, and then later on bumped into each other again at the airport, where you weren't scared to say, "Hey, Nick, let's have dinner." Um, you know, so on that note, how has serendipity played a role in your life, and have chance encounters influenced your career or personal decisions in any significant way?
constantly.
Yeah.
Uh, my spouse and I comment on it must be how our mindsets are, but how things always fortuitously happen and work out.
Mm-hmm.
It blows my mind how often it happens.
Yeah.
So it must be a mindset. Like, I can't believe that, like, the things just happen to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think they happen to everyone. It just matters what kind of mindset you're in when they happen. To
Right.
look at it and say, oh, that was lucky, or to look at it and say, oh, like, I put in all this work to get here. For
Mm-hmm.
example, like a mom at one of my, or at my kid's school, her and I are always talking about our education that we're doing. And I have my CFP, I have my CIM, I'm an associate portfolio manager. I just wrote my CLU final. I'm almost done my CIWM, and the FEA is 4 to 5 months away, provided everything goes well.
Yeah.
Uh, and like, it's real now that all this education is finally catching up with me and not wearing on me, but like, I'm really feeling the impact of it and being like, okay, I think I've done enough in this realm. But it's interesting talking to someone who's getting updates from me in that portion of my life. And I was
Mm-hmm.
asking, oh, how's the education going? How's the education going? And her point of view was, it's incredible that you've done all this
Yeah.
and you're almost there. And my point
Mm.
of view is, oh, when am I going to get there? Right.
Yeah. It's
So
true.
just be careful and take life like one step at a time. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay every so often to do too much, because you just don't know what's going to be around the rainbow. And so when we talk about serendipity, I don't want to guarantee it, but I can almost guarantee that, like, once all this is done, it is going to make a massive difference to who I am and who I want to become.
Yeah. You bet. I find it very interesting too, because I don't have as many designations as you, and nor am I working on as many, but it is important, and it's something that I'll continue to pick away at. And frequently, those who are not in our world have a hard time understanding what the heck we're up to. How do you work that much and have those many kids and do all that? And then you're studying at 9 to 11 at night too. Like,
Yeah.
as I'm reading materials last night, like banging my head off the wall, going, "Oh my goodness, this is crazy," but also thinking like, "There's no other way." It's like you get this bug in your belly, and you know what you need to do. You're almost
Yes.
wired that way. You haven't, like, for me personally, I haven't, like, it wasn't something I dreamt of, but it's just this fire that you can't put out until it's done, right? Um, there are those, I caution anyone listening in our industry who get the alphabet soup, and that's the pursuing of their career is to get more designations and not to help more people. So don't forget that you also got to put food on the table along with that. I think you're doing both, which is great.
Mhm.
For those who listening, just make sure you keep a bit of balance in that and productivity in the office, as well as learning all about how things work. But yeah, that's pretty incredible. It's cool that you have someone to share that with as well. But yeah, once that fire, starts to burn, you can't put it out until you're done.
But you also notice, like, until Quadrant Private Wealth, I didn't have this kind of fire. There's something about what they've put out there that really jives with who I am,
Nice.
and they know it, and I know it.
Yeah. Good on
Yeah,
them.
it's a very mutual quote unquote loving, I guess, is what
Yeah.
you would call it,
Yeah.
because that's what it is. Like they do say to me, they verbalize how much they like what I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
and I say the same thing to them.
Yeah.
I think that's you need that to then do the pursuit of the thing,
You bet.
right? I don't think I would have done 5 designations if I looked at what I was doing with Quadrant Private Wealth and said, I'm not really interested,
Yeah.
right? I'm fully interested, fully invested. I need to do this. That's how
Yeah.
I felt.
Yeah. Great to have found that spot. For me, that has been going off on my own, having spent time in brokerages and other firms and whatnot, and not really having that fire to succeed in a career, because that's just kind of in me. But also realizing, I think I'm better off on my own. But a very interesting piece of the transition and trajectory of my own career, even as the owner of our firm, is that collaboration has been a huge piece of 2023 for me. There was that, like, oh, I'm going to do it my own way, and you guys are all doing it wrong. And, I took the good and the bad from what I've learned. And now it's almost like, all right, we're in this point where we need to bring around other smart people, or, to help lead the organization and to work with in a collaborative nature, rather than, you can only get so far on your own. Right. So
Yes. Yeah.
it's super important. And that's awesome that you found that in your place of work. We both have children and a life partner. In balancing a demanding career in finance, while working hard to provide your family is no small feat. How do you navigate these challenges, especially with education? It was funny. I talked to a CPA this morning who has a young child who's going to daycare here in January, and she said, she's like, man, like, we were talking about working out, and she's like, either do it at 5 a.m. or 9 at night, and either time you don't want to do it because you're
Yes.
gassed either way, right? Like, putting children to bed is a huge task for those of you who don't have children. Well, good for you, and you can just chill and go to sleep. But for us, it's tiring most nights. And then, when the alarm goes off super early, well, you got to be pretty damn motivated to listen to that too. So, Paul, how do you balance all the things you have on the go and keep a cheery smile on your face?
Great question. My 9-year-old daughter, when I read her stories at night, it's typically 9:30 or 10, and I'll start mumbling. And when I start mumbling, that means I'm falling asleep, and she always calls me on it. Dad, you're mumbling. Dad, you're mumbling. So I definitely, like, I have a cap. But for example, I woke up this morning at 1:30 in the morning, and I could not fall back asleep. So I got up at 2, and I worked till 4. And then I tried to fall back asleep for an hour, and I couldn't. So I got up at 5, and I worked till 7. I got the kids ready, made their lunches, took the dog to daycare with them because they love going and seeing the dogs at doggy daycare. Got them to school late, uh, but that's fine. And then I came back and I worked this past weekend. Proximus 5, which is a 5-part male a cappella group that I am one of the founding members of. We had a concert here in the city, so I also still sing. We were in Iowa last weekend doing a concert in Iowa. So, like, that's important to me. Going on dates with my spouse is still important to me, etc., etc., etc. balancing, I don't know if there's any one way I can tell people to do it, but I've said this already in the podcast, I'm 43. I have worked for at least 25 years to build this life for at least myself in a selfish way, but also for my family. I'm no slouch, and I'm constantly going. I'm constantly finding ways to evolve, and I don't think that will ever stop. But I think it's also because I had a chance. My parents gave me a chance to pursue playing badminton at a high level. They gave me a chance to pursue being a singer. The thing that I didn't like the most was trying to be an accountant. But lo and behold, I found the thing that linked being an artist to being in finance. And it made the difference.
Yeah.
And without having an opportunity to pursue being an artist, I don't think that I would have been able to get this far. And so I'm able to do it all because I was able to pursue a passion and able to understand how that links into my life, so that my entire life is in fact me continually building a passion. And without I can't verbalize it any other way. Without the link to the arts, it would have been very hard for me to understand this.
Yeah.
But that really fundamentally helped me to be a person that can keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. I had COVID a year and a half ago, or even 2 years ago maybe, and I couldn't get out of bed for 2 days. Like, just couldn't. And I don't think that's ever happened to me. So I couldn't care for anyone. And someone had to care for me.
Right.
And I sat in bed and I watched movies for 2 days on my phone because I literally couldn't do anything. That was the most downtime I feel like I've had. Not that I haven't gone on vacations and done things.
Yeah. It reminded me of a book I read a few years ago called Stealing Fire by Stephen, I can't remember his last name, but we've talked about the fire in your belly and that piece. I think when you connect your passion, with your career, or just really understand why you're here, it's, there are times personally when I get pretty tired, and transparently right now, this point in my week and this month is one of those times where, but even, folks say like, oh yeah, you go on vacation, you got to take a vacation. And it's like, we do, but like after day 3, I'm like, all right, ready to go. Like, let's get back at it. And, one of the, I heard, it's, if you can live a life that you don't need a vacation from, like, that's a pretty cool spot to be in, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. It's like, and children help. You've talked about that too. And I really agree. And it's something I've observed just in the past few weeks, as the holidays are coming and the kids are excited for all that type of stuff. And you just watch the excitement in their eyes, and you just kind of realize that, like, it's the little moments that add up that give you that energy to get through. It's much more, it's harder to get through life, I find, if we're looking at the calendar going, oh my goodness, it's going to be a crazy month, I'm so busy. It's like, no, the tone of, I think Tony Robbins talks about that. You don't have to, you get to, have a meeting with Paul today and be on a podcast and develop a relationship with him. And, who knows where things go. I don't have to do this, but I get to, and that's just a little mind shift that makes things a lot easier. Right. And not so, piled up and
just to that point, the get to versus have to. Even though I think that the thing I'm the best at is having conversations just in general with people, and how I can get to the root of a point very quickly with someone who doesn't know me or someone who knows me. I still am fearful of those conversations. I still have many moments where I know I have to talk with someone, and something that runs through my mind is, how do I get out of this?
Right.
So even though it is my utmost strongest thing to do in life, it is still something that I am scared of. But I push through every time. And because I push through every time, I'm becoming less and less afraid.
Yeah. Big
But
time.
I also was very good at sticking my foot in my mouth when I was younger. But that's the learning point. Like I did
Yeah.
it so often. That was the learning point, was
Right.
understanding what you can and can't say. Because how else are you
Mm,
going to understand that?
yeah. It reminds me of, say, for example, I go home tonight and my wife goes, yeah, there's this dinner party on Friday night. And I'm like,
Yeah,
man, think I'm gonna be busy. Perhaps that's an introvert issue. But however, once she drags me there, I'm having a blast, having good conversations, and I go home like we should do this more often.
I'm the exact
And
same.
then next Friday, it's like, no, I don't. I'm gonna be really tired Friday night. Fridays suck. Maybe Saturday. You know, it's kind of funny, but I like you, maybe not to the same level, but I thrive on conversation. But you gotta drag me out to do it. But I generally do it anyway, and I feel better for it. So sometimes you kind of gotta take that step and that leap, and it tends to work itself out. But
Yeah,
I
for me, I was an introvert when
yeah.
I was a child,
Mm-hmm.
and so I had to learn how to be an extrovert.
Yeah,
And because
absolutely.
it's learned and not innate,
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the part of me that still has those fear moments because I am an introvert.
Yeah.
But people, when I say that to them, they laugh and say, "No way."
Yeah.
Like the example I've been giving lately is that FEA. I think I told you about this one. Is you go into module number 6 with the same cohort that you've been with for a long period of time, and you go through this insights
Mm-hmm.
um, exercise. It's very similar to disc profile,
Right.
etc. And there's 4 categories. There's blue, which is you're strong at operations. There's red, which is you are a strong leader, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it.
It's a nice
There's
way to say
green.
it.
Yeah, yeah. There's green, which is like you're pretty laid back and welcoming, and then there's yellow, which is like more outgoing, extrovert, easy to present, et cetera, et
Mm-hmm.
cetera. So obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but the entire room, you hand out the cards to people. You start with 12 and you keep what you think is you. You hand out the rest to everyone. And I ended up with 37 cards, and 31 of them were yellow.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
they go around the room and they ask like people who have predominantly one color to like read them out. And they got to me and I read through 12 of them and then I just went blah 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 because that was the obvious impact that I was having or am having with my module, is that I am coming across as someone who is at ease with people and willing to dig in
Mm-hmm.
and willing to meet everyone, talk with everyone, get to know everyone. And before that moment, like the unique ability was one thing, but before that moment where other people that you would consider are your peers are saying that about you, you don't realize that it's true.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's in your face.
Yeah.
And you don't have a choice but to say, aha,
Yeah.
I get it now.
Yeah. Pretty clear. Pretty clear to everyone else, maybe not to ourselves. It's interesting. It is a nice thing I think about that program and the cohort is that, despite the varied backgrounds of everyone and levels of success or however you want to define that, it's a pretty open room, I find so far in our cohort. And it's one in which, yeah, there's a lot to learn. And that's nice. And that's nice when people are open about where they're at and what they're trying to accomplish as well. Moves us all forward pretty quick. So I'm looking forward to module 6 for sure. I filled mine out. I think I know where I'm going to be, but we'll see. um, Passion for opera. Given your background as an opera singer, I'm curious how your love for music continues to influence your life. Um, can we talk
For
about that?
yeah, I when I would get into new jobs, I would like quit singing for a year. Like when I was starting as a commercial banker or things like that, like I would just exit singing for a year because I thought that was the thing you had to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
to be successful, you had to like really buckle down. And
Yeah.
it's
No
not
fun. You're
entirely
not allowed to have fun when you're successful.
exactly. It's not entirely untrue. Like you
Hmm.
do need to spend time in the thing you want to do. Uh, but I didn't realize just how integral music was to my life until I would
Hmm.
quit for a year, be miserable, and then come back to singing and be like, oh, I shouldn't have quit. And then do it again the next time when I was in a new job and
Right.
realize the exact same thing. So let's just say I've been singing consistently for a long period of time now. It constantly uh, feeds who I am and what I do. And I think that if you asked anyone that worked with me, they would say the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just a part and parcel of what comes with Paul.
And does an opera singer only listen to opera and classical music, or do they have other tastes?
Great question.
Yeah.
I actually listen predominantly to choral music,
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
but my kids have really gotten me out of my bubble. There's a station in Winnipeg called 94.3 Now
Hmm.
Radio,
Okay.
and it plays all the new pop music.
You got
So I
Taylor
know,
Swift bumping on your speakers then.
yeah, I know a lot of new pop music now.
Yeah, interesting. I also share a love for music. Maybe not the same genre, but a lot. It's something that I find can heal you, can take you on a journey. Just the other night, I was listening to like this sort of, I don't know how you call them, a jam rock band, not really like the Grateful Dead. Well, they're called the War on Drugs. Very interesting. They're like this. I love when things go against the grain. So now a pop tune is like catch you in 30 seconds. So you actually listen to this thing. And these guys are like, we're going to do a 6 minute long intro and then we're going to get to the peak of it. And I'm like, yeah, you go. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, I think music is really cool. I generally have it, cooking in the background as much as I can. Um, Future aspirations, you're doing a lot. You've done a lot here in the past 5 years, and really you're in the past 43 years. What are future aspirations that you have right now, both professionally, I guess, and personally? And are there any specific goals or projects that you're currently excited about right now?
The advent of AI, artificial intelligence, that has happened. Obviously, it's been happening for a while, but 2023 has been a really interesting year for it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I really want to just be an impactful communicator and help
Okay.
others,
Wow.
and I can do that at Quadrant Private Wealth. I can do that as a singer. I can do that as a dad. I can do that as a husband. I can do that in all aspects of my life. And I do believe that that's the direction that I'm constantly going to head in every aspect of my life. And
Mm-hmm.
so I am very interested in systems,
Okay.
uh, more so than I have been ever in my life. And here, just for the audience, you remember this one, Nick?
I do remember that one. Yeah.
So I reached out to Nick on LinkedIn, and I can't remember exactly what my question was to you, but you had said you I think you did this like 3 times already in our LinkedIn conversation. You don't respond; you just put a book link, like book link,
I've
book
already
link.
referenced like two here. So yeah, clearly I
Yeah,
like to collect books and most of them I read. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
So I need to find help to build systems where I can still be helping my clients in the same way that they need me to help them,
Right.
where I can still be helping my kids in the same way they need me to, my spouse, my music, etc.
Yeah.
And I think that is my like I think my education's done at the end of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So my aspiration is to find the people that need me
Mm-hmm.
in what I'm doing in the aspects of my life that I'm choosing to pursue. And I think I will find more people by building better systems.
Yeah. Cool. I like that. Shout out to Dan Martell, Atlantic Canadian entrepreneur now living in Kelowna. Maybe he's watching. doubt it. But anyway, great book. Thanks, Dan. It's helping a lot of us. That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's neat that you're leaning into something that isn't so comfortable for you either, right? You've identified that earlier in the, it's not really your natural ability, but systems can help. They really helped me a lot in my business. I think a lot that people, probably who are closest to me would. An interesting observation the other day and one of the things you and I talked about, and we don't have to go too in depth, but we did touch on ADD at one point, and I was reflecting on myself and my wife. We were chatting about it, and she's like, I'm this person, like you can see behind me, my books are kind of stacked properly, my stuff's in order, and it I tend to wonder, have I created systems to cope with perhaps an underlying undiagnosed issue? Because I have these tendencies, but my life is in such a structured order that like I can get by with it, right? And actually thrive in it because of systems that I've created, be it how I line my stuff up on my desk or organize my day. One of the things that we shared was, me hiring an executive assistant in the past 6 months, which has been so incredible. Shout out to Maddie if you're listening. It's just a game changer to have great people around to do things that you're not really good at or perhaps don't want to do, so you can focus on that unique ability. And systematizing things has been great. Helped us scale our business. It helps us introduce our process not only to our clients, but to that of our future staff who are going to work with us. And I think that's what's lacking really a lot in our industry, perhaps not in your organization because it's more established, but our industry is full of individuals who've done very well for themselves, but who have not really wrapped a business around what they do. And I think that systems are the differentiator, and oftentimes we're just so scared to do it, or we're more focused on the next sale, whereas, taking some time to step away and work on our business and build that process can allow us to free ourselves, oh my goodness, and get more time to do the things we like to do rather than paperwork or whatnot. So good for you. I'm happy that you're leaning into that. I think it's going to be a great exercise for you, and I might even have a conversation instead of just sending you a book. So if you have any other questions about that, Paul, you'll share my number if you don't already have it, and we can chat about that, because I think, as we teach others too, we learn a lot. So, it'd be great to help you with that if you need any. Paul, is there anything else you'd like to share? We covered quite a bit here in about 45 minutes. Anything on your mind that you want to talk about that you haven't?
No, I mean, I don't know if you do general advice to audience based off experience or something like that, but just keep going.
Yeah.
Whoever's listening, just keep going, because I promise you, listen to yourself. If it's not feeling like a good fit, find something else. If that's not feeling like a good fit, find something else. So at the end of the rainbow is a lot of happiness and joy.
Yeah, nice. Awesome. Well, let's end it there. The interesting people you meet with my new friend and associate colleague across the country and in Winnipeg, Paul Bruch-Wiens. Thanks so much for joining me, man.
Thanks, Nick.